What's up, guys? Just wanted to let you know about the Blockworks Digital Asset Summit, which is back in New York, March 24th through 26th. We'll have top speakers from leading asset managers, financial institutions, DeFi protocols, crypto companies, and policymakers all under one roof. Think of BlackRock, Coinbase, Robinhood, and more. Follow the link in today's show notes to buy tickets and make sure to use code 0x200 for $200 off at checkout. See you there. Nothing said on 0x Research is a recommendation to buy or sell securities or tokens. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and any views expressed by anyone on the show are solely our opinions, not financial advice. Boccaccio, Ryan, and our guests may hold positions in the companies, funds, or projects discussed. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of 0x Research. Today, we're joined by Lucas, Buffalo, from Jito, as well as Carlos and Sam from the Blockworks Research team. Lucas, how you doing? Thank you for coming on.
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. I guess just to start us off, we recently released a report on Solana block building, and obviously Jito is very, very involved. I guess just so people have a bit more context, do you want to chat a bit about how Jito's involved in block building, specifically with the BAM, and then we can get into more in depth?
Yeah. So backing up a few years, we created JitoSOL in the block engine to try to make the chain more efficient. I think it was pretty successful in 2024 and 2025. It was pretty hard to land transactions, and a lot of people relied on us to kind of filter the spam and land transactions. And a lot of that just was like performance bugs in Agave that they fixed. So the chain's way more efficient now. And we were kind of thinking what's next after this? I think we built some valuable products here, and what can we do to make Solana a better place to trade, a better place for applications, and what are some of the problems that we're running into today? So I would say that's kind of when we started thinking about BAM, and essentially BAM tries to make the way Solana works super transparent and verifiable. So you know how the market works, you know how blocks are built, and you can verify that they're being built the way that they claim to be built. So we do that using trusted execution environments. So you can basically go, there's this BAM node, which is kind of like the block builder, and it runs in this T, so it's all private. All the transactions and contents inside of it are private, and you can verify what's going on through that to stations. So basically you could, for validators that are running the BAM node, it's not open source today, but we're aiming for within the next few months here, after audit and all that, you can go to the BAM node, say, hey, what version of software are you running? Go to GitHub, see what's running there, and then you can kind of compare the two and see what's running. And then you also BAM has this concept of plugins. So basically applications can kind of build some customizability or features into the block builder, and those get the same benefits of the privacy and the verifiability and all that. So we're working with a few applications on that, and we should have some more info on some of the first stuff that we'll be releasing pretty soon here.
Perfect. One thing you mentioned is that I guess the initial Jito Agave client was to fix some of the issues that existed back then, but since then Agave has improved enough that it's not really an issue. Would you say that the current market structure on Solana is still broken to an extent, and that's what BAM is aiming to fix?
I wouldn't say it's broken. I just think that there's more that can be added, and I think that there's more that needs to be added than just IBRL. There's a lot of applications that are requesting ACE, so being able to support that at the block builder layer is something that's really important. And I would just say that there's this kind of trend where things are becoming more of a black box. Like, how does this validator order transactions? And when the way that market's working is changing every 1.6 seconds, then we think there's kind of some room to improve that and try to provide a little more consistency.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess from a user perspective, particularly looking at perps on Solana, how like what BAM is doing with ACE and those sort of things benefit those applications and users there.
Yeah. So yeah, we've seen a lot of there's a lot of chains that are implementing ACE. The most popular version is Hyperliquid. Actually, there was some discussion, I think yesterday or the day before, on, I don't know if you guys saw this, the Polymarket news. They had a taker speed bump of 500 milliseconds that they just removed, and a bunch of people were angry, and like we'll kind of see what happens there. But yeah, I think the perp stexes and the prop AMMs want ACE. I think ultimately, like, users will get better pricing because of this. So that's kind of the outcome that we're looking for, is like better user outcomes and more customizability for applications.
I guess I have a question in that regard. Like, it's great to enable application controlled execution, but the roadmap to get there seems unclear to me as of today. Like, what do you think the timelines look like for really having ACE at scale, like on Solana? Because to me, it seems like right now ordering is more or less trying to be standardized, maybe by priority fee per CU. A seems like the end term goal.
Yeah, I think that BAM, we are focusing a lot on like kind of a version of ACE right now with the first plugin that we're working on, and I think BAM can provide ACE to Solana like today without any protocol changes. And so today BAM's at like 25% of stake, and I think it's a good time to start testing that and iterating and talking to apps like, hey, what do you guys want? How can we make this better for you? And then implementing that. And I think in like the short to medium term, obviously we're optimistic the BAM stake will grow, and that will just make it the ACE that's running inside BAM happen on a larger percentage of blocks. But yeah, I think the priority fees CU sorting is kind of nuanced here because um, a lot of it depends on how the scheduler is actually built inside the validator. And I'll try not to get in the weeds too much here, but like previous versions of Agave, they basically would process transactions as fast as possible. So when there's no load on the network and there's like not a ton of transactions, there's basically no priority fee divided by CU ordering. It's like, hey, whatever I have here, I'm just going to process it as fast as possible. In 3.1, there's some version of kind of pacing here, which would help, where like it will, I guess, rewinding to the previous version where it just like fills up as fast as possible. On our validators, we're seeing that we could build a block, the entire block, and fill it up in like 150 milliseconds. So on the other 250 milliseconds, it's kind of just sitting idle. So at the pacing, it'll kind of linearly release the cost units throughout the slot. So halfway through the slot, you'll have 50% of the block full. And that kind of gives you some ACE primitives where like you get enough time to kind of collect these transactions and actually do the sorting. Where in the FIFO, like the Agave is essentially a FIFO before, so it's just like there's not really any sorting there. BAM, today we're running 50 millisecond batches and we want to get down to 20. Seems like a pretty agreed upon number by the people that we've talked to, market makers and other people. And then, yeah, long term, I think the best solution is probably MCP. We'll have to see what the exact design is for that, but that will change how the block's built a lot in that the sense that you all the reordering, like the priority feed by CU ordering, will be done in replay. So you get basically your batch size is like the slot size or your slot length.
Perfect. Carlos, before I let you go, I just wanted to clarify for listeners that ACE is application controlled execution, just because I feel like we chucked it around like 50 times in a row, and I'm pretty sure we were referring to it that as a completely different acronym like 3 months ago. So
Yeah. And I guess like to add on that, like the most popular version of ACE is just like a taker speed bump. So that's what some like Hyperliquid and Polymarket had until a few days ago. But basically, you give market makers a time advantage to update their orders, and they can basically quote tighter without having to worry about toxic takers picking them off.
yeah, I saw that poly market thing, and I saw a lot of people crash out in their Discord because they didn't announce it, any changes to their API, which to me seems a bit ridiculous to go with that. Again, you mentioned MCP. What does BAM look like in a post MCP world?
Yeah. So yeah, for the listeners, MCP is multiple concurrent proposers, and today, when you are basically there might be a few networks that have like various forms of MCP, but there's not that many. Essentially, what it is today there's one block producer at a time on Solana. You get 4 slots in a row. Every slot's 400 milliseconds. So you have 1.6 seconds where you are the only block producer. And so essentially have a monopoly on block space at that time. And so, there's the opportunity for the block producer to censor transactions during that 1.6 seconds or reorder them however they see fit. And just kind of like play more games. In MCP, you have multiple block producers that are basically each one of them produces a block at the same time, and essentially they get like stitched together. So you have like us 4 block producers at this time. We all produce different versions of this block, and then they get stitched together, and the protocol would reorder by the priority fee. And so, the goal of this is to like provide more censorship resistance. So if one validator is going to censor you, you can send it to another, and there's some other benefits as well. Like you can have redundancy on block producers and things like that. So if a validator is offline, you still get a block made for that slot. So yeah, that's kind of how MCP works. It'll definitely change the way that BAM works, but I think BAM will still have a lot of value in this world. BAM's kind of a few things. It provides privacy, it provides verifiability, which I think market makers want, and there are still ways to influence ordering in an MCP world. It will just look a little different. I was responding to someone on Twitter about this, but today the block producer doesn't really need to respect the priority fee CU ordering. You can kind of just stick stuff in wherever you want. And with MCP, you will have to the code that's like running the block builder, if they want to stick things in or whatever they're doing, they will just need to be a little smarter about how they choose their priority fee. Like you can imagine if Carlos makes a trade and pays like 100 priority fee, and I want to stick my transaction behind him, I can do 99, and it would end up behind when the reordering happens.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, to me, it seems like MCP brings a lot of consistency that is currently lacking in Solana's like block building landscape, and it does that with an in-protocol solution. That said, like, I think Alpenglow is one requirement, async execution is another requirement.
Yeah.
Like, and so like the timelines for MCP vary depending on who you ask, but usually people say like 12 to 18 months. But Solana needs a solution today, right? And so I guess my question is, can Solana get better market structure without MCP that is competitive with like app specific like chains like Hyperliquid?
Yeah, I think so. That's like the entire BAM thesis. So, yeah, we think we can get there today, and we'll have something that kind of like is like a demo application of this pretty soon here. But yeah, I think it'll be able to get there, and then we'll see on the timelines. I think 12 to 18 months seems pretty reasonable to me, but we'll see what happens.
And on that, like in the interim period before MCP, and with BAM itself, do you see there being like a good enough adoption threshold for BAM in like stake share per se, where you think like market makers can largely start pricing in leader risk and apps can have essentially an optimal environment to build on? Like, is it, if we go from 25% to 75%, is that pretty much there, or do we need to go all the way to 95, 100%? Like, how do you view this?
Yeah. I think 25 is like the bare minimum. Obviously, the more you have, the better, because you just know how the system works and that the apps will be treated favorably when there's more stake running this. But yeah, I think we're like at the point now where it's a two-side marketplace, right? Like you want applications to build stuff in BAM, and you want them to be able to kind of have a little more control over the way the system works. And you have the block space, which is like the validators. And so like if you have 5% of stake, it's hard to get the apps onboarded and like bought into this. And I think 25% is like the sweet spot where we can start to show value. And then, obviously we're optimistic the BAM stake will continue to grow. And so, yeah, I think like 50, 75, 80, 90% is pretty solid. And yeah, I think it's like back in the day when we were first like bootstrapping Jito Solana and it was at a small percent of stake. It was just a little additional complexity for people that wanted to use bundles. It's like if leader running Jito Solana, I can submit a bundle, else like submit a transaction. And then now it's like you can basically submit a bundle across like 96% of stake, I think right now. So yeah, there will be like a little additional complexity on like if user is running BAM or if the validator is running BAM, I can do this logic, and if not, I can do this logic. And that's something that we'll try to simplify for people with some of the stuff that we're working on, so that they don't really need to think about it.
In the question of like network stake, BAM has surpassed 25% of stake, but also Harmonic has been growing quite fast, and they are at like 16% of stake. Like, it seems unlikely to me that we get to a state like we got with the previous Jito Agave client, where you had like 97% adoption at some point. It seems like Harmonic and BAM will have to coexist, like in the interim while MCP like arrives, and probably even post that. So how do you view, like, can these two systems essentially coexist and still push market structure forward?
Yeah, I think so. We are at Jito, we're very focused on like the privacy, verifiability, and consistency angle. But also we want people to experiment with the system. So, I think we will provide the best kind of platform for this verifiability and like understanding how the market structure works. And the goal is that it will be consistent across block space, as opposed to like this algorithm that can consistently change block to block, and people maybe don't the additional cognitive overhead of like trying to understand what algorithm is running when you have multiple builders competing is a lot. And so we're focused a lot on consistency, but at the same time we want people to experiment. And so we're very serious about open sourcing this code and having other people working on it and maybe trying different schedulers and whatnot. But we just want it to be open and verifiable. And I think that's where we spend a lot of time thinking on and like trying to optimize for.
That makes a lot of sense. And on that topic, so Harmonic has said that they essentially are selecting the highest fee block can be as a proxy for packing efficiency, because their 3 internal builders are optimized for different network conditions, and the auction has strict rules in place. I guess, do you buy that idea that highest fees can be a good proxy for efficiency if there are certain rules in place? Or do you see that there are like unavoidable tensions where any type of fee-based selection could drift towards the wrong way and not towards execution quality?
Yeah, there's definitely some tensions that exist. Yeah, like the thing that makes the most fees is probably not the best for the network. Hopefully we can like figure that out somehow. Um but I mean you can see that like the validators are making the most money or just kind of delaying transactions to the very end. Or they have some custom strategies running or like running arbitrage bots on their validators and stuff like that. So I think like yeah, um, there's definitely tension there, and I think figuring out how to mitigate that will be super important because there's a lot of lessons to learn from other ecosystems, and we can't make the same mistakes. And I think that when you have a lot of competition at this layer, it's how do you avoid the like playing games to make higher rewards so validators choose you. And yeah, you'll run into like order flow games and integrated searcher builders and like a lot of application rebates and things like that.
I think that's a fair point. I feel like this is not on this line, but I feel like we kind of touched on it. BAM at 25% is at a good state. Are you guys thinking of implementing incentives, or what's the game plan for growth on that side?
Yeah, there are incentives today. So the DAO is sending a lot of the protocol revenue to validators to that they can go and claim to run this. And there's some like tapering off of it as the I think as the stake grows and there's like time based tapering off and all that. But it's just to like get the system bootstrapped, and I think it's worked pretty well. We've gotten a good amount of stake from it, and so now it's like now we're obviously focused on stake growth, but now it's like proving value and how do we add value to the network today. So that's the thing that we're focused on a lot right now, and yeah, I think we'll have some cool stuff to share on that soon.
I just want to ask about this like one idea of adding value versus, I mean, you already said there's some tensions in the harmonic side. And I don't want to push too much into this harmonic side because I don't see the point of it. But can you, I guess, like expand on this thought process of you guys want to focus a bit more on like being good stewards of the network? Is this the idea of BAM?
Yeah. Yeah, we are not really um like not really into playing a lot of games here as far as like trying to really maximize rewards. There's a lot of things that you could do that would just not be super great for the network. And so yeah, we are our main customer right now. Obviously validators are important, but we've been talking to a lot of applications. We have, you know, I have at least 3 or 4 calls with different applications every week, mainly focused on the trading side. Like, hey, what can we build on the network for you that would make your application 10x better than it is today? And so that's the angle that we're approaching it from, is like talking to a lot of applications, figuring out what they need. We have a few ideas on things that we could build internally and starting to build those out internally while the code is still closed source. And then, once it's open source, then people can kind of build what they want inside there.
I'm curious, like when you speak to these applications, like what are their biggest pain points today? Is it like mainly on the block building side? Or do they also have issues with the fragmentation that's going on with the transaction landing services and the like fragmented fee stack between out of protocol tips and priority fees and whatnot?
Yeah, it depends on the customer. A lot of the prop AMMs, it's like we're seeing, since we released IBRL, that website that shows like how people are packing blocks, we're seeing a lot more people looking into how blocks are packed. So I think Sandwich.me, the Ghost Logs team, teased some data that they were looking into that I think they'll release pretty soon here. a lot of the prop AMMs are looking into data and finding some very interesting things that are going on. And so, I would say it's like the transaction landing, and there's just so many services that exist to try to do this. How the actual like ordering is taking place in the block for like the pro traders, like the prop AMMs or pro traders and the arbitrageurs and things like that. And I would say that the like a lot of the AMMs and market makers want ACE. So that's kind of a common theme. I think the question is there's a bunch of different ways to build ACE. So what are the different ways that we can build it and how do we serve them? And then there's some other interesting use cases like what if my application was more tightly coupled with the scheduler and like if I could run my application in the scheduler, then what types of new things can I build or what types of new experiences? So that's not necessarily like a problem, but it's like a new design space. Like, I can't say too much, but there's some interesting things that you can do if you're like running your application inside of the block builder. I guess one that we like touched on is like this idea of like just-in-time Oracle updates. So like pulling in fresh Oracle updates before a user's transactions, so they get the freshest price. So that's kind of like one example of something that you can do inside the block builder that just gives a better user experience.
I have I'm gonna take us back for 1 second to BAM a little bit more, just because, just going off that idea of being good stewards to the network. You guys said you don't want to do you shut down the private mempool a while ago. It's been 2 years now, and then you're kind of giving up some other Jito revenue sources for BAM as well. Is that how was that decision made? I guess a good question. Like because you guys run a company as well, like you need to make revenue. How do you approach this thought process?
Yeah. Well, today all the revenue from all Jito products, except for like some validators that we run at labs, goes to the DAO. And so it wasn't just a decision from us; it was a governance decision, and the people, the JTO token holders and delegates, decided that that was the right move to make. But obviously, like someone has to write the proposal, and we're trying to decide like a few things to do, but I think we're kind of like re-entering this new growth mode. Like we went through this Jito Solana growth, literally launched it like right before breakpoint at 2% of stake, grew it to over 90 something percent of stake. And we're kind of re-entering this growth mode with BAM. And there's a lot of applications that want BAM to succeed. So it's kind of like, hey, we should really try to throw fuel on the fire here and get this to grow. And that was kind of like the thought process is like, we really need this thing to grow fast. And I think it's been helpful from like getting applications more serious, but also the more block space you have, the faster you can iterate on. So like collecting data, we have a ton of data and ton of performance data and like ton of block data. So the more stake that BAM gets, the faster we can iterate. And I think that was kind of like the thought process behind that.
I was just going to say, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like growing the pie per se. And I guess in this interim period, what applications or teams are you most excited to be working with, or you're most excited about in general that are utilizing BAM?
There's a few that we announced in our original blog post on BAM that we're working with, but you can assume that we're like talking to a lot of the prop AMMs and some other application, some perp dexes and things like that on Solana. And right now we're like mainly focused on prop AMMs because that's where a lot of the activity is. But we'll start to kind of slowly expand out from that into perp dexes and other things.
But perp dexes aren't the primary focus. Like, because to me,
not at this point.
Looking out from a non I love Solana. I love Jito, but I would say I'm less Solana focused than, let's say, like a Carlos.
Yeah.
So to me, it always seems like, from an outsider's perspective, it's like prop AMMs are great, but Solana will probably have to focus a bit on perps dexes eventually. And I assume that BAM would be and Jito would be like playing a very key role, and it is something in plan. But
Yeah.
currently, like first iteration is prop AMMs.
Yeah. Yeah. We have limited resources. So we kind of went through like what's the state of the world today. And yeah, we decided it would be good to focus on prop AMMs. And we do talk to the Ellipsis team a lot and talk to them about Phoenix perps and how that works and how we can support them. So they're still, I think they're like kind of still in beta and like rolling out whitelist codes and all that. But yeah, we want to help them and we want to help Drift and with other perp dexes as well.
Yeah, on that topic, I saw the Phoenix team mention something on the timeline, like a 30x reduction in the CUs, which would be quite significant, like to enable much better like ordering within the block. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's how I think they have like a prop MM inspired design. And so the beauty of the prop MM compared to traditional order books is that the updates are super cheap for market makers. So I think a lot of the prop AMMs today, it's like 50, 100, 200x more efficient to update their the price on the AMM compared to someone taking and trying to swap on it. So I think it makes sense. You do still want some type of like pacing or batching for that to take place. Because if you remember earlier, I was talking about like if you have FIFO, it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, it is the cost savings is nice because they can just stream in updates super fast. But yeah, if you really want, if you kind of want that those ace like properties, you need some type of like pacing or like batching or something so that you can get enough time to collect everything and like let it sort out and like all the maker updates sort to the top and the taker stuff sorts to the bottom.
I guess on that point, like in terms of like if we zoom out to network upgrades, like if we think about bandwidth, like the block limit has been increased to 60 million CUs, it's going to get increased to 100 million CUs. But one thing that I think everyone is excited about is the potential reduction in like slot times from like the 400 like millisecond threshold it is today. Like in your opinion, what needs to happen for us to get there? Because BAM runs 50 millisecond like auctions. Harmonic just announced they are switching to that as well, but it seems like a reduction in slot times would really be beneficial for the network.
Oh, 100%. I think that's a lot of us have disagreements on like where we should go in Solana, but I think we can all agree there that lower slot times is better. It reduces the proposer monopoly time, and it reduces some of the timing games that you can play. So like instead of late packing and packing all your stuff at the very end of the slot every 400 milliseconds, it would be like every 200 or 100. And so yeah, I think everyone's a fan of that. And my understanding of what needs to happen for that is just performance improvements. So there's one performance improvement that will be in 3.1, uses this networking technology called XDP. Basically means you can send data way faster, like 100 times faster or something. And so that will be enabled on validators. And so they can propagate state out faster because they're spending a lot of time like distributing the blocks to different parties. So when the XCP is enabled, they'll be able to send it way faster. And then yeah, there's just a lot of performance. Every time you create a new block, there's some like fixed cost to that. Like I have to, do my house cleaning to like produce the new block and all that. And so there's a lot of performance optimizations that need to happen around that, and probably some other stuff like leader handoff and other things. But yeah, I think like someone at Alan's like Brennan would be the right person to talk to about the specifics there.
No, that's true. It was also my understanding that because voting costs were relatively high, that if you reduce like slot times, like essentially if you have the slot time, you're doubling the cost for validators, and that
Yeah,
would be really bad
Alpenglow will
for,
fix that.
yeah, and Alpenglow will fix that exactly. But yeah,
Yeah,
it seems like Q3, Q4 this year, like a lot of the pieces could probably be in place for a reduction in slot times. But yeah, this is
yeah,
a better question for the ANSA team, I guess.
yeah. I do know that, like, if you follow Alessandro on Twitter, he's got some crazy profiler that he built that a lot of times when you're like profiling high performance software, it actually slows the software down. So it slows it down to the point where you can't use the software anymore. So he has some crazy profiler that you probably see him sharing screenshots of, and he's just like going through everything, and like it's like, oh, we're spending 15% of our time here. What the heck is that? And you just like keep finding those things. You make it 5%, something else bigger pops up, shrink that down. Something bigger pops up, keep shrinking it down. So I keep bothering him to open source that tool. We'll see when he does it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess like on the matter of agave, like it seems Fire Dancer was kind of like super hyped like 1 year ago, and now that it's like launched, it has launched like with just 3 validators, I think, from the jump team. But agave has made like immense progress like in the past like year and a half. Do you think like Fire Dancer can still be able like to compete with agave in terms of stake eventually?
Yeah, 100%. I think that last I talked to Fire Dancer team, like kind of around breakpoint time, it's pretty good. There's still some uh like consensus related mismatches going on in place. So I think they want to keep the amount of stake small, but I know that they're working every day to get those mismatches figured out. And so yeah, I think it'll definitely be able to keep up. I'm pretty sure it just runs all the execution on one thread, and where agave is like 8, 24 or more. So it's like way faster. But same time, you have the core team at Ansa working hard to make it the Ansa client faster.
That makes a lot of sense. And I guess on this, like on these competitive dynamics, I guess, do you think, I guess, in aggregate, the internal competition in block building has been a net positive for Solana so far? Or, and maybe forward looking as well, do you think it could potentially create too much fragmentation and coordination overhead from, I guess, different ideas and incentives in the long run to actually get what is best for the network?
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell at this point, but there's a lot more people thinking about this, which is good. We're seeing more people looking at data on Solana block building. People are thinking hard about it, and yeah, I think it's too early to tell, but that's definitely something that we are trying to avoid with BAM, and that's kind of why we built it the way that we did, is to try to avoid this fragmentation and like these black boxes that are building blocks on the network. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what we're optimizing for, and um, really hope that we don't go down that route on Solana.
I guess a bit more specifically on that, is there any realistic path or I guess some communication efforts at the moment to coordinate with so like a competitive block builder like Harmonic in regards to trying to get a few things on the right page for the best, I guess, for the best perspective from the network?
Uh, yeah, there's some conversations going on, but yeah, I think we talked to a lot of parties, core devs, market makers, applications, and um, try to figure out what they want. So um, yeah, uh, that's kind of what we've been spending most of our time on.
Yeah, I kind of want to move away from BAM a little bit. Like it has like dominated the conversation like in the public for the past few months. but I think like still a relevant part of like Jito is like the JitoSOL part of the business. And it seems like you guys had a lot of efforts like in terms of like ETF approvals to enable like JitoSOL as an underlying asset for more operational efficient like staking rewards for ETFs. Like could you walk us through
Yeah.
like what those efforts have been looking at?
Yeah. I'd say it probably goes back to around a year ago. We were the first team to go talk to the SEC crypto task force, and we talked to them about liquid staking and ETPs. So we kind of started thinking about it a little bit before then, but we saw the opportunity open up, and it's like, hey, this administration wants to talk to builders, so let's go in. So Rebecca, myself, Greg, and Kyle at Multicoin went in and talked to them, and that was kind of like what really kicked it off. So yeah, we spent a lot of last year like understanding what do you actually need to launch an ETP, and I don't spend most of my time thinking about this. It's mainly like Brian and Rebecca and others, but uh, yeah, you need like market indices, you need custodians. They need to like be able to mint and burn the asset. You need like security audits and all these things. And so we spent a lot of time last year doing that, and we announced the VanEck JitoSOL ETP. There's still some work going on on that because LST there's no LST ETP in the US that's live today. So there's a lot of things to think about, like what is the liquidity on dexes versus sexes? Like can you only rely on dex liquidity, or does there need to be sex liquidity? Like how do you build an index for this thing? How do you do the mint burn? A ton of stuff like that. And then we're able to move a little faster in Europe. So there's the JSOL ETP, which is 100% JitoSOL that 21 shares launched a few weeks ago. And then, there's a few others that we're working on in like UAE and Asia and things like that. But the benefit of the one in Europe specifically is that they need to do a lot of they need to be able to meet redemptions on stake, like when you are redeeming out of the ETP. When you have stake SOL, it's really hard to do that. So you need to have some buffer. Like I'm going to stake 90% of it, assume I've run the numbers, and I don't expect more than 10% of it to be withdrawn in a day. So we're just going to stake 90% of it. If you want to redeem more than that, then you have to get like a line of credit, and that has a lot of cost to it. So it can actually eat into the rewards of the ETP a lot. And so with JitoSOL, there's secondary markets for it. You can get in and out of it. And so they are able to stake 100% of that and get slightly higher staking rewards than some of the other products. And that just means better product for customers.
Really funny to hear you say Europe is moving faster on this than other places.
Yeah.
Switzerland, no?
Yeah, we were moving fast, and then the government shut down, kind of threw a wrench into things. And there's a lot of work to get these things set up. They just crypto, you can just like create an LST, launch a website, and you're good to go. That's not how things work in the TradFi world at all. But I think that's kind of what our strength is like chewing glass for this like 6 to 12 month period to kind of set these things up.
Carlos, do you have a follow-up?
I mean, I have a question, but I don't know if it's a question like for a lawyer, so no worries if you can answer it. But like, one thing that I've wondered is that you have all of these SOL ETPs and ETFs, right? And it seems like you want to launch like a JitoSOL like ETP, but wouldn't it be better, like, because if you think about institutional investors and they look at like an ETP product and it says like JitoSOL, they're probably going to be like, what the hell is this, right? Like, whereas if you just like allow for JitoSOL to be used as an underlying asset for the existing SOL ETPs, I feel that would be much better. But I don't know if that has come into the conversation.
Yes. Yeah. There's we spent a lot of time on that, and I think Rebecca would know more, but I don't really know where that conversation ended up. I think it's a little tricky, but yeah, we definitely agree with you. People are gonna be like, "What is JitoSOL?" So if it was just like a SOL ATP, then that would be much easier to understand.
Yeah, I guess we covered a bit of the institutional side. In terms of the DeFi end, are you guys still very focused on growing integrations for JitoSOL?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, our main focus right now is like JitoSOL and BAM. We spend most of our time thinking about BAM, and then we are starting to expand into other areas with some other new products that are a little more consumer facing as well. So that's something I've been spending a lot of time thinking about in between BAM. And yeah, we should have more to announce on that later this year. But I think there's a lot of room for us to grow in that and a lot of things that we can offer that other products aren't offering today. And so, yeah, we're hiring a head of product mobile. If you are listening and that's you, please apply. Just a quick show there.
Very good. Sam, Carlos, unless you guys have anything else to ask, I think I'm going to do my wrap up questions and then we're good to go. We good?
Go ahead.
Okay. Lucas, I have two things. Number one, what is one thing that you guys should have done differently over the past 3 to 6 months? And number two, what are you looking most forward to over the next 6 to 12 months?
This is probably a cliche, but I think we could have been using AI more recently over the past 6 to 12 months. I fell down this like deep rabbit hole. I guess it was like 2 weekends ago. I got OpenClaw set up, and you know, I've been using it more for BAM stuff to like build me custom dashboards, and like write features and all this. And I don't know anything about how to work on front ends, but these things can just like crank out stuff that's like good enough for me to like debug stuff or view metrics and things like that. And it's just saved me so much time since I started using it. And so I, in addition to all the other stuff, I'm like thinking like, how do we leverage AI more? And one thing I kind of realized is we have there's just so much knowledge inside of these different LLMs, like our conversations with it. Like maybe Carlos is a chat GPT person, Sam's like Claude, and you're Grok. And you're all asking it similar questions and like getting similar responses. So I've been thinking a lot about like how do we unify that and use it as a learning lesson and like make it basically like keep feeding that in to like kind of recursively make something better. So that's what kind of like a side project. And then so yeah, I think we'll start using that way more. And then 6 to 12 months, I would say pretty optimistic on BAM and some of the applications that we're working with. And then excited to reveal what we're working on with some newer products as well. We're pretty excited about that.
Very good. Very exciting. We actually just had, maybe an hour before this, conversation about how we all have different contexts within like our separate agents and our separate AI tools, and that we need to unify them a bit. Because it is kind of a massive thing, like the fact that I don't know, like me and Carlos can't interact our contexts with one another, like our agents can't talk about it, which is really messy.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine, I'm assuming you guys aren't in person, but like if you're in person, like the overhearing other conversations and like getting, at least for engineers, like debugging stuff and getting in the room or, you know, collaborating with people, it's easier. But right now you're just kind of like collaborating with LLMs and there's a lot of stuff locked in there that I think is really good.
Yeah, I imagine the next step is like co-collaborative, co-works, and Claude codes and stuff that are just gonna get much, much better over the next year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's crazy. The pace of innovation in AI is pretty insane right now. It's like a new model is being released every week.
Yeah, and somehow they're all better than one another. But
Yeah.
Lucas, thank you again for coming on. This was very, very fun. And for all of our listeners, make sure to check out the ibrl.wtf website to see what Lucas is talking about with regards to validators and what they're doing. And Lucas, if there's anything else you want to make people look into.
Check out BAM. It's bam.dev. That's it.
Okay, perfect.